It's working. All right, guys. So, all you guys ate. You guys are probably tired.
Nappy time.
Nap time, and I'm not going to let you sleep. I already started. I got it recording, so we're good. So I'm going to try my best to. David says I go really fast because when I get excited, when I get really into something, and this is something I really love, I start talking about it like I'm talking to my buddies, and we just go at it, right? So if I go too fast, ask me to slow down, ask me questions. But this talk is about, we're going to talk about a little bit about historical perspective, different architectures, frameworks, legislation that has happened, where we are currently, and where we're going in the future. So I'm going to share with you that perspectives, 3 different perspectives, and then I'm going to show you how we're visualizing some of this information, large sets of data, how they're interrelated, and how you can be much more efficient as a compliance officer or any kind of compliance person, because that's like half of our job, right? So this is just the agenda, but I covered this. We'll talk about why are we here a little bit more in detail, but let me tell you a little bit about myself. Who am I? Where the heck did I come from? So in 1996, I moved here from India. Everybody knows where India is today, but before 96, nobody knew about India because there wasn't free trade. So President Clinton signed an agreement. After that, India became a huge economic impact in the world. But before that, nobody kind of knew it, right? So it took me 10 years to get here. My father applied for citizenship, and eventually, 10 years later, U.S. Embassy called. We sold everything we ever owned just to buy the tickets to get to America. I went to Oklahoma. That was the first place where I learned English. So if I got a little accent, it's from Oklahoma. Yep. So for better job opportunities from Oklahoma, we went to Dallas. And then after I got my U.S. citizenship, I was working for Department of Treasury. 9/11 happened. There was lots of budget cuts. I decided to join the U.S. military as a security specialist. So that's kind of how I got started into security. I'm a prior defense guy. That's how I think, and that's how I've been trained to think. So from there, I went to Iraq, Afghanistan. I played the linguist role. I was an auditor. We're doing a lot of stuff with going to a completely bare base, setting up communication. Where there is no communication, how do we set it up securely? Over devices, using devices called TAC lanes, if you're familiar with the military technology. And then we wired up to the satellites, get it back to DC. So out of the 6 years, I spent 4 years in the Middle East. And I got back from Iraq in 2009. I got married, and I was already ready to be shipped again. And then she's like, hey, why don't you get out? And I listened, I got out. So it was probably one of the best things I've done. And I do miss it, but what I started doing was I started attending school, started getting my certifications, getting into cybersecurity from a commercial standpoint. I became an auditor for the Air Force. And today, we actually audit, how many of you heard about FedRAMP environments for cloud computing, right? So we audit the guys like Booz Allen and Northrop Grumman to make sure the assessors are doing a good job, right? So there's only a few of us that are doing these things. So I took all of that experience, and 3 years ago I started my firm. It's called Mafazo, and it stands for MA is for Max, FA is for Farah, ZO for Zoya, which is my daughter. But now we have 2 daughters, so I screwed that up. Right? Short-term thinking. Been blessed so far. I'll work with David. David's in the crowd, and what we do is we consult on GRC. We take a holistic approach because we believe compliance drives security even though they're 2 separate, and I'll show you how that's changing because that's exactly what's happening in the defense. And then my passion is teaching. I love teaching. I teach online for free. There's a course online that I'm doing on authorization boundaries next month if you want to sign up. And then the other thing we do is we write software. So if you have a Dell laptop today, there's a chip on that laptop on, well, certain models called a Trusted Platform Module chip. It's an encryption chip. We wrote the software for Dell over 20 million laptops. So we really love to write software, and then we really like to read the regulations and how they impact technology. Kind of a weird mix, but that's just kind of what makes me tick. So, I want to start off with a couple of questions for you guys. How many guys get audited? Just raise your hand. Okay, good. How painful is that, you would say? What do you think of auditors? What's the general... I mean, I'm an auditor, so you can tell me anything, right? Just if you hate me...
I'm an auditor, too. So
Cam's an auditor.
They're the most wonderful people in the world.
They're the most wonderful people in the whole... Thank you, Cam. I appreciate that. Most knowledgeable... What was that?
They're not the most knowledgeable.
Most not... Okay, good.
They know if it fits in this square, then that's what it is.
There's no gray, right?
That square, then
Yep. So, David likes to say, David, you shouldn't have told me this, but I used to get proctology exams, and I've given proctology exams, so I know what you're talking about. There's no in between. There's very little gray room, and that's just how it is, right? So, my question is, what if we knew how the standards are going to be? Would you prepare for it now? Or would you just kind of wait and say, well, you know, when it hits the organization, I'm just going to take a approach where I'll just kind of react and I'll just write up policies and I won't really communicate that, right? And most of you guys would say, well, I would prepare, but realistically, only a few % would actually do something. So what I want you guys to think about is what is going to change and what can you actually do about it? How can you start preparing your architectures, your governance risk compliance programs to make it a little bit future-proof. So we'll share that. So here's the little bit of a historical perspective. Everybody knows ISO. I know you can't read that because we don't have a nice screen, but it started in United Kingdom, right? And it was a British standard, and then they applied to become an international standard. And over the years, it has evolved. And what's been happening is you're getting more rigor into the program. Before it was just loosely defined. Now there's a lot of structure to it, and that's kind of what has happened to ISO standards.
So Max, as we go, how many people are using ISO?
Right. 1, 2, 3.
So let's just, as we keep going, let's see, because...
Right, yeah. Because ISO is a really big standard that's impacting the way we do. How about PCI? How many are familiar with PCI? Credit card. Everybody has to do credit card security, right? So the way this was formed, these organizations, these credit card organizations that basically came together in the 1996, wait, was it 96? No, about 2004, I'm sorry. That time frame, and they formed the PCI Council, right? So all of these guys, they believed they wanted to self-regulate, right? Instead of government intervening, we're going to create a standard for ourselves, and we're going to clean it up. So that's where that kind of came from historically. And over the years, the most painful thing I've heard about PCI, can anybody tell me? What's the latest standard? 3.1? The password requirement? Kind of ridiculous, right? So, we as you can see, the evolution, we start with something simple. We start implementing AppSec and concept of compensating or mitigating controls. And then in 2008, I remember around that time, everybody was talking about, well, we need to shift from a compliance-based approach to a risk-based approach. And today, everybody is like, well, the first thing we do is a risk analysis, and we figure out what our risk is, right? But really, that shift happened around 2008 to 2010. And before, it was all just kind of checklist-driven. It still is for the most part, but a lot of people are starting to understand it's all about risk. How you measure that, how you get to the equations, that's different, right? So that's the evolution of PCI. And around the same time, the government was transforming as well. So, have you guys ever heard of the Rainbow books? Rainbow series?
Anybody have them?
Anybody has one?
Anybody got any of these books?
I read the orange book.
You read the orange book?
No. Seriously? You
That's-
still have it?
I don't have it. I read it online.
On Federation of American Scientists. It's out there.
They're probably all historical.
If you get one of these books, I looked it up on Amazon how much it would cost. It's like $200
And it's just a little
for a pamphlet, right? It's crazy, right? So the Department of Defense, the NSA, they were going through their own challenges. They had these things called the Rainbow Books, which just basically think of them as different guidelines for trusted computers, configuration, all of the things that you see today. They had their own guidelines. And then they went through a transformation as well. So you read the Orange Book. They took the Orange Book in 1983, and then in 1994, they took the concepts of certification and accreditation and came about something called DITSCAP. I used to be the king at DITSCAP and DICAP. You guys heard of FISMA, right, for Federal Information Systems Management Act? That came about in 2002. And then now, again, we start seeing this concept in defense of, well, we're doing checklists. We're doing checklists, so we need to go to risk-based posture. We need to go measure risk somehow. And that's where the whole risk management NIST framework, what's pushing today, that's where it came from. But that's the evolution, right? So that kind of helps us understand what's happening. We've seen what's happening in ISO, what's happening in PCI, what's happening in NIST, and we're going to start to see the same thing happen in HIPAA and other regulations that are similar, where they're going to talk about risk and they're going to get more prescriptive. So every single standard that's being revised, it's only getting worse. It's only telling you exactly what to do. Before it was just high level, do confidentiality, integrity, availability. Well, what the heck does that mean? So then they get down to the system level. Okay, change the registries this way, log this kind of equipment, and do this, right? So that's the trend. The latest is this is kind of a controversial, right after target attack, the Cyber Intelligence Sharing Protection Act. But basically what that says is if you have threat intelligence, you have to share it. You can't just hoard it anymore. So if you're Target and Kroger, they're seeing the same kind of attack vectors, you have to share that and you have to report on that. It's not just like, hey, I found this hack and it's called Heartbleed, or here's a funny name I gave to a poodle, but they have to report to it, right? And this thing just came out a couple of days ago. Basically, OIEC or OCIE is going to start their examination program. And what are they going to look at, right? What kind of artifacts do they want to see? And what type of architectures and frameworks are they familiar with, right? So if you're following ISO, PCI, are they familiar with that? You got to ask yourself, because this is a government body. Well, what are they used to? So, how many are publicly traded companies here? Okay, so Sarbanes-Oxley, Section 404, same kind of concern. It's happening in that world. So, if we put regulation on top of all the attacks that are happening, you can see a direct correlation. So these are all the, so-and-so called the advanced persistent threats. These are things that they're finding underground. These are not attacks that, like phishing attacks. These are very intelligent, thought-out attacks. And this Byzantine Hades, this goes back to 2002. Like, they're just finding it now. They're saying, but what they're seeing is that, wow, we've been exploited since 2002. And there's a lot in Department of Defense that they go way back. But obviously, they're not publishing them, right? So, when I was in the Air Force, how many want to take a guess on the frequency of attacks per month that the entire United States government faces? Just take a guess. 1 month, how many attacks? Just give me a wild number. How many?
Million plus.
Anybody else? It was 1.2 billion. 1.2 billion attacks, right? So imagine putting a sim to that. It ain't going to work, right? Right? Sorry, Logarithm and QRadar, if you guys are in the room. So, and we're friends with Logarithm, right? But truly, it ain't going to work, right? So what they're finding out is these attacks go way back. There's, it's been this corporate act, the Cyber Intelligence Sharing Protection Act. It's actually been tied to a national security act. It's not even a cybersecurity issue. They're calling it a social economic issue, because a lot of our jets, a lot of our aircrafts, they look very similar to Chinese aircrafts. It took us 100 years, took them 20 years. Where is it coming from, right? So that's, if we correlate those two, what's happening, increase of attack, you guys already know that, but then there's increase of regulations and prescriptiveness of regulations. So here's the results. We always know this, technology will always outpace standards bodies, but if we have 5 different standard bodies, you got NIST, you got ISO, PCI, right? They're much less effective working separately than they are together because they're being outpaced by technology. Cyber attacks are also outpacing technology itself. And what that means is people are talking about quantum computing. And there's already been published attacks, theoretical attacks on how to attack and sniff a quantum computer, right? By some really crazy, smart people. And it's just like, it's what's happening. And then a lot of people are saying, well, is there market failure? So I talk to my friends who are legal advisors, and they say, the problem is that whenever there's a breach, we don't have any teeth because we cannot prove harm. So like if I get my credit card stolen, okay, I replace it, they give me my money back, and they give me a program to do privacy watch or credit watch, some kind of protection. But with Ashley Madison, right, you guys heard talk, and there was a couple of murders that happened, right? People killed themselves, right? So now there's direct harm. Whenever there's direct harm to a consumer, the government tends to say that this is a market failure. So how do we address this market failure? Right? So there's definite fear of overregulation. So imagine if government came in and said, let's just do more. And we know that sometimes compliance doesn't equate security. So there's a lot of self-regulation in the healthcare space. How many are in the healthcare space here? Have you guys heard of High Trust? Right? So High Trust is an organization that basically took ISO and NIST, jumbled it together, put a bunch of other stuff in there, PCI, whatever else it felt like. That's an attempt to self-regulate. Because if they don't do it, the government will come in and create harsher standards. And there was another interesting case, I think it was recent. Soon as FTC got authority to go sue people, right, now they can go after companies for being negligent. There's a healthcare company that they went after. The healthcare company said, no, we're following the law. We're following what it exactly says. We're not doing anything more. We're not doing anything less. So if you guys read HIPAA, the CFRs, they're very high level, very vague. Do CIA, confidential and integrity. Do a risk analysis. What does that mean? Nobody knows. People make it up, right? 100 different ways. So now they're revising HIPAA, right? So there's a lot of self-regulation that's going on. And how it impacts us, there's what I call controls mayhem, right? How many of you work out of spreadsheets today to answer controls? You're smiling, you're guilty, right? So it's terrible. I hate working out of spreadsheets, but that's really what's happening. And really, we're trying to achieve the same thing, right? We're trying to become compliant. We're trying to do the best as we can with our resources. We're trying to figure out where are the overlaps, where's the relationships, where's the mappings. So when I answer one control, can it apply to 100 of different controls? Because everything talks to each other, right? So that's the results. So the current trend is everything is aligning with one singular standard because it's easier, right? So in defense, all of these funky acronyms, DITSCAP, DICAP, NICAP, NISCAP, all the caps, right? They are going to be using RMF for every single agency, whether it's intelligence agency to Department of Air Force, Army, local governments, federal, everybody's going to use RMF. If you want to do business with the government in any sort of way, they're going to use RMF. If the government comes and audits you, what do you think they're going to be familiar with? Whether you're using COBIT, ISO, they're going to be familiar with RMF because they're most likely going to leverage their current auditors from PwC, whoever it is. It's going to be towards RMF. So my encouragement to you is to take a look at it, to see how it maps to your current standards and start learning that language because it's going to become very important for us. Healthcare.gov, if you're in the healthcare industry, go out there. There's a kit out there. It takes all the HIPAA rules, the CFRs, aligns them to NIST. It maps it for you, right? High Trust, we already talked about that. PCI Council, that was a major shift, and it just happened recently. They just asserted NIST in there. They're saying for risk management or for asset management, threat management, use one of the frameworks that you can use is NIST. So again, I think everybody's realizing that we're just writing a bunch of words that mean the same thing. Why don't we write standard set of vocabulary? And we need a body that is well funded. And who's better than the government, right? So any other organization, they're going to be left behind. It's hard to stay up. If you are using ISO, because a couple of people raised their hands, if you go to Appendix H of NIST, it's crazy. I got these appendixes memorized. Man, I can't believe it. I'm such a nerd, man, when it comes to this. Right? So they map them for you, right? So if you're like, well, we're an ISO shop and we don't care for NIST, they've created the mapping for you. Try not to create your own mapping. Because I've talked to legal counsels about that, and the reason is that you may understand the language. It may say security vulnerability and security vulnerability here, and let's join them together, but you don't understand the legal intent. And only your chief legal counsel, your general counsel, can help you with that, right? So sometimes they'll write policies that are not so prescriptive to protect the company, that are vague. So you can say, well, we're under HIPAA. We don't want to talk about system settings in our policy, because what you write down, you should be doing. At least that's how they're going to look at it in a court of law. So definitely don't do self-mapping. Go to an authoritative source. And the only authoritative sources that are out there is NIST and healthcare.gov. It's issued by the government. So there's only two ways you can lose money today in cyber. Attacker, somebody will come and take it, or the government, there will be a settlement fine, right? Some sort of fine, some sort of legislative action. So you have to prove due diligence, and they're going to go back to what they're familiar with. So that's the current state of affairs. So, where do we go from here? This latest one was interesting. Did you guys see the President Obama meeting with the Chinese president? Did you guys hear about that? Like last Friday, right? So they're not calling this, we've been saying, security is a business issue, it's a risk issue. It's not a technical issue. Really, the nation is considering it a political, economical issue. Because a lot of our technology, you can see the Apple of China, there's a company called Xiaomi, everything looks like Apple, right? A lot of our jets, our technology, everything is in China, so they're considering it more than a business issue, right? So I don't think this is going to do anything, because they basically met up and they said, well, we agreed to disagree, but we're going to try to work together. But if anything does happen, you can bet that there's going to be increase in complexity. Cost of control compliance is going to be huge. So, and then the other thing is we generally have, I'll see experts all the time, and they're right. They'll have compliance, and they'll have security, they'll have a versus sign, they'll say it's not together. But the way the government perceives it, they want to use compliance to drive security. So when you separate them two, you separate the intent. And so how are you going to prove it? You might have a really beautiful policy, but if that's not communicating to your IT departments in any automated fashion that there's no linking, it's not going to hold water, right? So government is going to use compliance to drive security, and NIST control set does a decent job of that because it's very comprehensive. And I'll show you guys what that is. Now, how am I doing on time? Good? Okay. David, am I going too fast?
No, too late. You're already done. You're half an hour.
No. So here's what we do, right? When we support organizations, we take a very holistic, different approach. First thing we try to do is we help them try to get out of the spreadsheet mindset, because you'll have 30 business units with 30 different spreadsheets. You'll put them on a file server or something, and there's no tracking. It's difficult to manage, right? It sounds like you are feeling the pain. Right? So we try to do that quite a bit. And then the other thing is we don't just say, hey, don't just look at the mapping. Because today there's a lot of people that just say, well, if I get a mapping of every single control, every single regulation, and then I have this huge monolithic, framework, then I'll be happy. Really, all you've done is nothing, and if you go to court, that doesn't stand because the legal intent doesn't match. You've mapped, But then again, we've seen HIPAA requires very little. NIST requires a lot, so you match for no reason. It doesn't really make sense from a legal standpoint, right? So what we do is we also analyze advanced relationships. When you're talking about one control, how does that control pervade throughout the organization? I'll show you guys that through the visualization. Intent analysis, and the other thing the Department of Defense does really well is called inheritance. And what this is really simple, but nobody does it on the commercial side. So you got one external firewall, right? That external firewall protects all of your assets. In between, you might have other firewalls and other kind of block and tackles, but that firewall, every time you get audited, you have to talk about it, right? It should be something that gets inherited into your policies, into your controls or your mitigations. Nobody today has that concept. And fortunately, DoD has it kind of figured out. And that's how they operate in a very distributed environment with control compliance, because they have the same problems, if not more. They're protecting weapons, lethal type stuff. So where else could you learn better than that, right? So inheritance is big. The other thing is we like to visualize to help executives understand what is NIST, because when I pass them a spreadsheet, they'll be like, yeah, assign it to Johnny and it'll get done. So I'll show you guys how we get across to them. And then finding 20% that matters, right? The Pareto Distribution, the power law. If you can figure out what 20% really matters in your compliance work, you can save a lot of time. And we do that through analytics. So let me show you guys. Just duplicate my screen. Let me connect to my phone just in case it dies. So, how many are familiar with NIST? How many have worked within NIST environment before? Oh, good. Awesome. So for those who have not, I'm going to quickly go over it. We'll talk about how do you articulate it, because normally NIST environments are notorious for getting put in Excel sheets. So I'm just going to explain to you how it works, because there's a story behind this. I was working with an executive. They brought us in. They said, hey, we want to get our federal certification and accreditation, something called an ATO, authorization to operate inside of a government environment. And I got one person who does compliance. Can you work with him? I said, sure. So I go to him. I said, hey, man, have you started on your control compliance? Where are you? What's the authorization boundary? He's like, well, I just got him in a spreadsheet. I passed him out, and nobody's really responding. I've talked to the director. I've sent it to him. So I'm like, okay, I got to do something about this, right? I got 5 minutes with this executive, and I really need him to understand what this is, right? So how do I do that? So this is where we decided to visualize everything to help them understand. So what NIST is, you got your families. Inside of your families, you have inside of your families, you have your controls. But these families are things like access control, if I can make it bigger, yep, awareness and training, there's 18 of them, right, so on and so forth. And underneath each family, you have your controls. Underneath each control, you have enhancements. So these are also called subcontrols. So things like, AC1, drag it down. It goes from AC1 through AC20. I wish you could see it better, but basically underneath the controls there are sub-controls. And what I told that executive, I expanded this whole thing out. Took my time. I wasted 3 minutes on expanding this out because I thought that was the most important part. And then I said, hey, you guys are a moderate profile. You know that. It says that in the RFP. Here's all the stuff you got to do. So as soon as I clicked that, all the bubbles went off. I said, do you have people who can even read this stuff? I said, the guy that you assigned, Johnny, he's only working part-time. Now I was able to build a case to say, all right, it's a resource problem. That's the first kind of discussion. Like, it's a basic resource problem. You're not allocating funds. You're not allocating people. You're not allocating money, time, right? So to articulate this inside of a spreadsheet, for me, it was very difficult. And I also use this as an education thing where when people just don't understand how the risk management framework works. This is really easy. You know, if you're a low impact, we can quickly just show you what kind of work you have to do. And of course, when you hover over, it'll tell you if you're part of that baseline or not. Okay. So let's look at some of the other things that we do through visualization. So again, the external circle are all the families. Like the blue is access control, and then I believe we've got awareness and training, audit and accountability, so on and so forth. What we've done is we put all of the primary controls, not the enhanced controls, the primary controls underneath it. And what we're able to show is when you hover over one, you can see when you're talking about least privileges, how is that related to other families and other parts of your organization? So when you're talking about complying with one control, whether it's from a technical standpoint, policy standpoint, how does that pervade throughout the organization? Most people are not doing this kind of analysis in spreadsheets. In fact, it's impossible. So we've taken large sets of data, put it inside of our analysis engine, and we're able to generate all kinds of views to help people understand, give them insight that they never really had, the relationships between, right? So this is pretty cool, right? So the green means direct relationship, right? So the green line means, okay, if you're working on these privileges, also go to these other controls. Red lines mean indirect relationship. So this control is going to talk about, this indirectly as well. So we've done that with the primary controls, but this is really useful when we take all of the controls, and we can do this with every single regulation, and relate it any way we want. So this is 900 controls, guys. That's ridiculous, right? That's just crazy. So you can't even see it, but it's 900 total controls. We've interrelated them. If you wanted to quickly find out where is bulk of my work, you could do that, right? You could quickly see, okay, where's the lines? If I don't have a regulated industry and I want to follow the NIST standard, where are the relationships? What's it really talking about? This is more powerful than just doing what do they call those, word clouds, right? You look for the biggest word. It doesn't help, right? So with this sort of analysis, you can figure out, what's my 20%? Because if I do this 20% really well, hopefully the 80% I'm getting done, So that's what this shows. It's so huge that, it's just, it's crazy. Like, so all of the NIST controls are in there, but generally for like a high profile, medium, you're going to do anywhere from 150 to 300. That's still a lot of work. Still incredible amounts of work, right? So let me see if I can zoom in and show you guys. Have you ever had to answer any of this? Pam, have you ever had to do that? Yeah? Yeah, it's just, to me, it's just a lot of, a lot of inefficiencies. So the other thing we can do is, if you're using the software to actually do the analysis work, we capture data. We capture data about you that is different about you, and then we can generate workflows. So if you're a network security guy and you like to talk about network security controls before you go into program management, we can generate behavior-based workflows on how people go from one thing to the next and how they are related to each other. So that's a lot of efficiency that we're trying to drive that doesn't exist in simple Excel sheets or Word documents. It just doesn't exist. So if you're in charge of answering 300 controls, wouldn't you want some sort of intelligence to kind of help you? To say, okay, you just talked about access control on the network level. Do you want to talk about it for your firewalls and IDS? Instead of jumping into privacy or something unrelated, right? So that's what that is. That's kind of what I wanted to show you guys. What questions do you guys have so far? And how many of you guys think this would help you guys in your organization if you had some sort of intelligence? Yes, ma'am.
Where in your model is risk represented?
So this is not a risk analysis tool. This has very little to do with risk, to be honest with you. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm taking as per NIST specification. So if you're saying, well, where do I focus, right? Where do I go first? The only thing NIST tells you is priorities. So let me see if I can find like one of these that says priority 1 to priority 5. Well, there could be 100 priority 1s. So this is not a risk assessment tool at all. It just helps you organize your compliance in a lot efficient manner. Because no matter your risk profile, if you're under scrutiny of the government, you're going to have to do at least 100 controls. So if you're going to have to do at least 100, wouldn't you rather do them more efficiently? That's kind of what it shows. Great question. What else, guys?
Can you track those as live data? Like, I met this control, I didn't meet that one yet.
Right. Compliance, non-compliance, you can't. Absolutely.
We're not really showing you our product.
Yeah. Well, I don't want this to be a product talk, right?
We're not in here selling you. It's called Triumph. You can see it out on that. You can contact us. We'll be happy to eventually show you all the stuff. So we just really want to talk more about the history and keep it an education series versus trying to sell your own product.
Because what I want you guys to think about really is, if this stuff is going to happen, it's really, the government is going to enforce a certain standard. If you guys worked in the finance industry, there's two main standards: GAAP, generally acceptable accounting principles, and IFRS, the international accounting standards. Every company that wants to do business with the United States has to follow GAAP to a certain extent, right? It's slowly changing to IFRS. I see NIST and ISO the same way. Where is our place in the world? Do we want to be leaders in cybersecurity? Well, the government says yes. So if you want to do business with the government, they're going to start enforcing that. So the intent isn't to, hey, contact Mofazo, that'll be nice, but really it's to take your current control set and look at what NIST has to offer, because that's going to help you. That's going to make you a little bit better, because it's targeted towards doing just more security than just compliance. Because it'll get down to system level. It'll get down to, hey, change your configuration settings, change your registry settings, log on, change on your log on your password, log all of this other data. You rarely see that out of standards. I've never seen standards so comprehensive, right? And the nice thing is you can be selective. If you're not under the government scrutiny, you can say, well, we're doing these things anyways through automation. Why don't we document it?
Next, do you want to talk a little bit about your next training that's coming up, and people can jump in if they want, and how
Sure.
they find this?
So I have a LinkedIn forum that I've been running for about a month. I got on LinkedIn and I said, hey, who wants to learn about NIST, just general concepts? I got about 50 people that are like, yeah, we're very interested. So in October, I'm doing training on how do you define your authorization boundary, which means scoping your environment correctly. So that's free. It's available online that I'll be teaching. You have my email. It's max@mofazo.com. If you just email me, I'll send you the link. And I make all my training available for free. So after I get done with it, I'll publish it on YouTube or whatnot. But if you attend the webinar, there's a live conversation. It's actually pretty nice. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
What do you guys think?